Good afternoon. The results of long and detailed federal investigation are in. The Department of Justice says the Albuquerque Police Department does use excessive force and is violating civil rights of citizens. The feds released its 46-page scathing report after investigating APD for the past year and a half. News 13's Jessica Garate begins our team coverage in the Newsplex.
Kim, the DOJ report tears into APD from top to bottom, saying officers are violating the Constitution and federal law. It says most of the people killed by APD should still be alive, and that officers often created a situation where they were forced to shoot.
We found that officers used deadly force against people who did not pose an immediate threat of death or serious harm to the officers or to others, and against people who posed a threat only to themselves. In fact, we found that sometimes it was the conduct of the officers themselves that heightened the danger and escalated the need to use force.
Since 2010, APD officers have shot 33 men, killing 23 of them. That prompted the feds to step in 2012 to investigate the DOJ. It says it found APD officers too frequently use deadly force against people who don't pose a big threat. The report also says cops are using less lethal force, like tasers, when they shouldn't. And another big problem, APD officers are using force with mentally ill people when it's not necessary.
What our findings do mean is that more needs to be done by the city and by the police department to ensure accountability and to give you the tools, the training, and the guidance that you need to enforce the law vigorously while defending the public's right to be free of excessive force.
Now, the feds say this all comes from the top, a systematic failure which contributed to these patterns, including deficient policies and no accountability. It also points out inadequate supervision, poor training, ineffective investigations, and the lack of civilian oversight. Now, the DOJ says it came to these conclusions after an in-depth review of APD documents, lapel video, interviews, and extensive meetings with the public. You can see the full copy of the report on our website, KRQE.com. Kim?
And the DOJ says a great majority of APD officers are honorable and risk their lives every day. The feds say they just want to make sure they are properly trained and have the right tools to keep Albuquerque safe. In the report, the Department of Justice specifically points out 5 controversial shootings where, quote, officers shot and killed civilians who did not pose an immediate threat of death or serious injury to officers or others. Matt Morrow is live in the Newsplex with that. Matt.
Kim, these shootings go back to 2009, and basically the Department of Justice is saying Albuquerque police did not need to shoot and people did not need to die. The first case is when Officer Justin Montgomery shot and killed Andrew Lopez back in February 2009. Officer Montgomery thought the young man had been involved in a shooting and was armed. Turns out he wasn't. Montgomery shot Lopez from behind the cover of a truck, wounded him, then walked up to him and shot him in the heart, killing him. A judge later called Montgomery out during a civil trial and basically called him a liar. Then in March of 2010, Officer Kevin Sanchez shot and killed Mickey Owings in a Walmart parking lot off Coors and Ouray. Police were investigating a stolen car, then Owings backed his car into an unmarked police unit. When Officer Sanchez went up to the car and shot and killed Owings, he did not have a weapon either. Then in May of 2011, Officer Sean Wallace shot and killed Alan Gomez during a SWAT standoff. Officer Wallace shot and killed him while he stood on his own porch unarmed. Wallace has now shot 3 unarmed men. The fourth case is from March 2012 when Officer Martin Smith shot and killed Daniel Tillison. Tillison was in a stolen SUV. Officer Smith says as he walked up to Tillison's window, gun drawn, Tillison reached for something, then backed the SUV into Smith's police car. Smith fired off 2 shots, killing Tillison. He was holding a cell phone. The DOJ says a reasonable officer would have realized there wasn't a threat in that situation. And of course, the DOJ zeroed in on the Kenneth Ellis shooting. The Iraq War vet who suffered from PTSD was shot and killed while holding a gun to his own head. The city settled that lawsuit for a whopping $8 million. Kim.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Now, some of the cases the DOJ looked at were handed over to the FBI. Some of the officers involved could be facing criminal charges. There is no timeline on that. So where does APD go from here? Well, the DOJ does have a plan outlined. They will work alongside APD to implement changes and will not take over the department as some people requested. Among the changes, new training for officers in the use of excessive force. Also, new policies in regard to using force, lethal and non-lethal. The DOJ also wants an emphasis on tactical units that are often called in to deal with these tense situations. And of course, there will be a big focus on better interaction with individuals with mental illness. The biggest thing, more accountability all around, starting from the top with the chiefs and down the chain of command. Another big thing, giving actual teeth to the Civilian Police Oversight Commission, which has none now. The DOJ says at this point they are entering into a voluntary agreement with the city.
The Department of Justice will monitor any agreement that results. In our agreements, we also often retain the services of an independent monitor to provide expert assistance and a level of accountability and reassurance to the community that reforms are being implemented.
Now, the DOJ says APD's problems with excessive force and poor oversight run long and deep. The report even raises concerns with current Police Chief Gordon Eden, who just took over, and comments he made in the days after last month's controversial shooting of James Boyd.
Do you believe this was a justified shooting?
Do I believe it was a justified shooting? Yes. If you follow case law.
Chief Eden later said he spoke too soon. A lapel camera video does show James Boyd getting shot to death by APD in the Albuquerque foothills. Critics say video is proof police crossed the line. The shooting is now the subject of a federal criminal investigation. In the report, the DOJ says the recent remarks by the chief on 2014 demonstrate more work is needed.